Hi, and welcome to episode 4 of Java Tutorials. Today we're going to be covering arrays. So what an array is a way of storing multiple variables in the same spot, or more or less the same spot, having access to them in the same spot. And they work sort of similarly to variables with a couple of little differences. So, to make an array, like a variable, you need to decide what type of information you're going to be storing. So we're going to make an array of ints. So, int, and then you put these brackets around it, and then you name it. So, we'll call it just array equals new int. And then in here you put the size that you want your array to be. So this is a way of initializing your variable, your array with a particular size. So if you have a size in mind, that's what you do. Otherwise, you can do int, and I'm going to use just a capital array because the computer differentiates between capitals and lower cases. So you can use just the same name with different capitals and you can get away with it. So what that does is it makes a variable of or an array of no particular size. And then you can do similar things to when we did variables. Array equals a new int, and then you can give it a size here. So 7. So you can see that they're similar to arrays in that structure, except for this this new here. And new has to do with objects, which we'll cover later on. But for right now, you just need to know that new is what you use when you make arrays. So int array equals new int. So that's how you construct an array. But now we want to use an array, and we'll just use the first one for simplicity's sake. So you can sort of visualize the way that arrays are stored. And this isn't like the most technically accurate way to do this, but it makes sense. So you have the different elements in the arrays, and you notice that you start counting at 0. So 0 is the first element of the array, 1 is the second element, which starts to, that can be confusing, can be a pain. And you'll notice that I actually started my tutorial series on episode 0, because in Java, counting sort of starts at 0. So in the zeroth thing, you can have some number stored. So we'll have the number 3, and then we can have the number 5, the number 4, and the number 7 stored. So the 0th element holds number 3. So you not only need to say that you want array, you need to say that you want array and the second element if you want the number 4. You need to say array and the number 0 if you want to get the element stored in 0, the 0th element of the array. So, I'll show you that right here. To do that, you say array, and then you put your braces down. And then if you want the first element, you put 1. And what that does is, right now, we're just talking about this part of the array. And for us particularly, we actually don't have anything stored in there yet. So that's what we want to do right now. We want to fill that in so that we can use it. So array 1 equals, and then we just pick some number, 4. So now we have the number 4 stored there. And if I built this array to reflect if I built this array to reflect our current situation, it would look more like that. This is what our current array looks like. And we can use just that one number. But what we want is to pretty much fill up all of these things. Because why else would we use an array? So to do that, the easiest way to do it is with a loop. So I'm just going to do a for loop. You can do a while loop if you prefer. So int I equals 0. I is less than the array. The size of our array is 5. I plus plus, and you notice that I did plus plus here, and that's a shorthand way of writing I equals I plus 1. So that's equivalent to I equals I plus 1. And then in here, I do array. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in I. So now what this is doing is it's saying the ith element of the array. And we're going to set that equal to 3. And we actually can get rid of this. So what happens here is it goes through and it says, okay, the 0th element of the array, set that equal to 3. The first element of the array, set that equal to 3, not 4. And the second element is 3, and the third element is 3, and the fourth element is 3. So now everything stored in the array is 3. So, I mean, that's not particularly useful right now, but as you get more complicated and feel the need to use arrays, you do want to usually loop through them, at least to print out the stuff that's there. Now, the next thing we can do is print out something from our array. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to just print out the array. That causes a whole that's not useful. You know, when I do that, you just get this weird string of numbers and letters and symbols. That's not what you want to do. You want to print out the particular element of the array. So you put the brackets down, and then you put in the element that you want. So if you want to print out element 2 here, you put the number 2 here. And now you'll print out the second element, which is going to be 3. So those are arrays. There are a couple of other things that you can do with arrays that I'm going to quickly tell you about. So that's what's called a one-dimensional array. But you can also have a two-dimensional array. And they're made in the same way, except they use 2 braces or brackets. And what that does is it sets up sort of if this is how we visualize our first array over here, what this does is it kind of makes a grid of values. So instead of just having 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 along one side, you have those values going down either side. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down here we have 0, 1, 2, 3. And so this gives us a much larger array that we can store values in. So if we wanted to get the value at 2, 3, you would go to the second element this way, and then go over to number 3, which would give us the element that's right here. So you can see how you can use arrays to store a lot of information. And you want to make sure that you're using the correct array for the situation that you have. And if you wanted to populate one of these arrays, what you can do is you can have what's called nested loops. So if you have a loop within a loop. So I'm going to copy this. I'm just going to paste it down here, and I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to paste this same thing again. But what I need to do is change the variables, so I'll change I to O. And then I'm going to have to change this 5 to a 4. And then array becomes capital array, which is a 2-dimensional array. And then I can do that. So what that does is it will cycle through this. So this loop will go in, and the first iteration of this loop will immediately catch this loop. And then this loop iterates 4 times. And it will go from, so it will give you the 0, 1, 0, 2th, the 0 second, and it will continue through. And then this loop will finish, drop back to the first loop, and what you get is, this array will fill up in a very systematic way. So you can use nested loops, and this is probably the most obvious usage for nested loops, but there are definitely other ones out there. But that's pretty much it for arrays. You can do 3-dimensional arrays, 4-dimensional arrays, but it's all the same. It just has to do with the number of brackets that you put in. So that's it for arrays. Thanks for watching.